Okay, this is a very special occasion, and my life has really been determined by childhood experiences around the years of the Holocaust, which I experienced intensely as a person in hiding. Come from Athens, Greece, and I was born in 1937. So I was 6 years old when the news spread that the Jews from Salonika were being deported. And the church in Athens rallied to provide the Jewish community, which is a smaller community, with fake identity cards. So at the age of 6, I was supposed to know that something has happened, that my name now was changed to Nicholas Theologopoulos. The family moved out of a beautiful home in Athens, and in horse and buggy carried some belongings in the nearby suburbs. And the family was moving from place to place for quite a while. And then we settled in a place that was very close to a military camp in Marousi. The doctor, a friend of my father's, occasionally came with the news and some food supplies. Those years were very intense experiences. We had bombardments, we had the fear of being found, the fear of being discovered. I had a little brother who had a circumcision, and we had to train him in secret around the neighbors. They might have known that we were Jewish, but they didn't seem to try to hurt us. There was a reward for being discovered, and we were afraid of that. So my parents were pretty scared, and I was kind of having a little bit of fun in the hide and seek atmosphere. In those years, my father taught me how to read and write. My older brother was placed with another family, so that all of us were, at least one of us would survive. I remember at the end of the occupation, horse and buggy going back to our beautiful home in Athens. And my father died soon after that. But what was very traumatic is that my mother's father, who had a British passport, who was put in jail because of his British identity, was killed by the communists uprising, the civil war in Athens. And we were in between the British nationalist location and the communist location, which was located in a big high school in our area. And I remember the bombardments of that high school. And I remember policemen, bloody spots. I remember something like people hanging from a tree. I remember houses that were leveled. So we were living in a war zone after the occupation, after the Holocaust. So you can imagine a young person who is trying to find his bearings in a world that is so uncertain, so changing. You do not know who is your friend and enemy. And this all happens in Athens, Greece, a famous place for its civilization, for its cultural prominence. As a young man, I was the only Jew in the classroom at Athens College. And I wrote a paper graduating from Athens College about the Jewish diaspora, the history of the Jewish diaspora. I was very aware of the fact that the Jews in Salonika, 70,000 people in a lovely cultural community who was still speaking Ladino were totally exterminated. And I was aware of the fact that they were persecuted from Spain, from the Inquisition times, and they had found their home. And they perished. So my awareness of the Holocaust was understanding the dynamics of persecution and the dynamics of this international phenomenon of a group of people with a certain philosophy and values who had achieved to have happiness, good families, productivity, creativity. Why would that happen? Be that being persecuted in Spain or in Poland. And so my awareness was that of a broader need to survive understanding. And you can imagine being inspired by the proud Greek culture. I'm going to school every day, and on the way facing Acropolis with the temple of the classical Greek thinkers. So my story, and what I would like to share with you today, is that of a child growing up to find, why is the world so violent? Why is it so conflicted? And why do we get into this predicament to be victims again? And I would like to share with you my story as one of a journey of a thinker. And besides writing a dissertation for the high school graduating class, where I got rewarded with an essay first prize. It's a nice school, famous Athens College, Athena High School. I finished medical school in Switzerland, writing a play about a genocidal war, trying to understand the psychology of Hitler in terms of the motivation for such a crime to humanity. And I was aware of the catastrophe that he brought to his own home, to whole Europe. And I was trying to understand the motivation for creating that. And, you know, years later, I have a Holocaust memorial. And I finished my business with Hitler by putting him in jail on top of a Holocaust memorial, violated safe deposit boxes tower. I found the head of Hitler's and I put him behind those bars. But my Holocaust memorial is what we learn from the 20th century. And what we need to understand in order to protect the world from Holocaust, be that Holocaust for Jews or Holocaust for a sect that is fighting another sect in one religion, like what happened in Syria, what happens in Yemen. And so I found my way to wisdom, and I'm celebrating at this point having Max, my son, who is both a graduate of divinity school at Harvard and who has a PhD from in psychology, and who is accepted as a professor at Dartmouth, and he has received a big award for research in suicidality for a VA in Vermont. And I'm happy to be here because of his spirituality and his interest in science coming together and bringing it as a family of thinking people, psychologists who are all healers, but also bringing to this group a healing message. Max was telling me about Primo Levi's memories of the Holocaust concentration camp. And the Greek people from Salonika seem to be better surviving by finding ways of merchandising, exchanging, bringing emotional language that liberated people. And I see myself as seeing the broader problems of the world, not only being behind barbed wire, not only being ready to be cooked, but as problems that we have, creating a better psychology that understands the problems better and understanding religion. And here we are both Jewish people, most of us suppose, and we are therapists, we're healers. And we have to understand that this is a century of discovery in technology, but we're missing out understanding the secrets of the human mind and understanding how to reconcile that with religions. So we are not allowed to think too much about religion because it's an area that doesn't have an object of study, and we have to be politically correct. And we have difficulty today understanding psychology because it has become a medical specialty. And the world today is divided, the head from the body. Moral people, religious people are very inspired by stories. Psychology is very preoccupied with the body. My challenge is really, in short, how to put the two together by shifting a paradigm and looking at the problems of the world as finding a new moral paradigm that is based on science. And this is what I would like to celebrate with you, that my journey from the Holocaust has led me to develop a theoretical position that reconciles the head and the body, uniting psychology and religion by understanding the creative process. And I have a slideshow in which I share with you some of the basis for understanding this kind of new moral paradigm and considering psychology becoming really understanding morality better than religions. The paradigm is understanding the creative process. What is universal in all stories is reflection of the unconscious seeking resolution. This is what Aristotle identified when he studied Greek tragedies, and he talked about the universe of drama as teleon holon, which means the perfect universe. And he's the one who identified the structure of a story as a system that has continuity of action. He's the one who identified the concept of catharsis, later modified by the Latin people as Deus ex machina, that God is coming up from a pulley down on the stage to give the verdict and justice to the resolution. And here I want to take a position as a thinker and have something to say to psychoanalysts. Of course, psychoanalysis has evolved, but the model of Freud was to talk about the Oedipus complex and sexuality as being of the paramount importance in understanding psychology and even religion. And here I'm taking a kind of a position that Freud developed a number of models of understanding the unconscious and behavior. Jung also developed alternatives, mystifying the unconscious with archetypes, with cultural paradigms, with collective unconscious. He came a little closer to developing a model of personality typology and measurement. But neither Jung nor Freud had an object of study. Neither one managed what they wanted very badly, to create a scientific psychology. And they all missed the mystifying religion and spiritualizing psychology. The creative process is the spirituality that is innate in all of us. Religions discovered the unconscious and evolved different paradigms of how this unconscious is redefining the divine. Psychology missed out on understanding that quality in the humans. Now, my scientific paradigm spiritualizes the creative process and attributes to the creative process all the attributes of the divine. It is the human unconscious that creates stories that resolve conflict. It is the human unconscious that projects and evolves and improves the family with the evolution of religions. Now, this is the essence of my work, and I would like to share with you some slides pictorially illustrating to you what my theoretical process brought me to. And the passion to share the message got me to become an innkeeper, beautiful inn in Manchester, Vermont, become a museum curator with a number of exhibits, presenting exhibits demonstrating that creativity is a real measurable phenomenon, and developing a psychological assessment which uses creativity for self-discovery. And I would like to show you how that phenomenon, that psychological measurable phenomenon of creativity becomes the basis for a psychological assessment, which now with Max's help is online and can be used by anybody without any charge for any fee for self-discovery and healing. And I'll show you a story of a Holocaust survivor who found that healing through completing the self-assessment. Unfortunately, we don't have too much time, and I have a lot of slides to share with you. So I'll go quickly through and try to at least share with you the excitement of making progress in both understanding psychology and understanding religion. Because the biggest problems of the Holocaust is that we're persecuted for a religion. The biggest problem for a lot of wars is religions that we cannot understand, demystify, and free ourselves from their confines, and being able to promote a psychology that understands better how to promote wellness, not only with very expensive and mystifying and questionable therapeutic techniques, but simply providing the public with the means of being educated in self-discovery, self-healing as part of education. And as a way of healing myself and being a brave patriot, scientist, I have been trying to distribute the possibility for wellness and healing to everybody by making the assessment available to everybody online for free as the gift of a Holocaust survivor to healing the world, to go beyond the confines of current psychology, beyond the confines of current inspirational faith systems that really are discoveries of science, but they're partial and complementary discoveries. So what I would like to share with you at some point with the slideshow is that we have two technologies that can make a difference, that can give hope to all of us, that we can survive the disasters we have today, both in terms of wars and in terms of conflicts with personality types like Trump. For instance, personality typology was very well recognized in Judaism, the four characters of the Haggadah. But psychology today does not have psychological diagnosis of wellness like religion did. And psychology is not as smart as religion. Religions are psychological theories. They're not metaphysical phenomena. And we have to demystify religions in order to free the world from the nemesis of divisiveness. And so I come here a little bit like a radical person. And I'd like to share with you, and I thank you, Max, for setting me up for this experience. It is time to share the good news that we can heal the whole world, not only us from the trauma, but prevent the trauma from happening. So at this point, I'll share with you some slides. Okay, so this is the shingle in front of my office. It's called the Moral Science Project, and the highlight is the creative process, the scientific moral paradigm, museum and training center, and I have a little park in the back, which I call the science park, and which I have two Greek concepts on it, ammonia and syntagma. Ammonia means, there's two squares in Athens, Greece. And ammonia means that we all have the same one idea together, nous being the noetics, the ideas. And syntagma, which is the square where the parliament is about coordinating action. Now, this is what gave me the understanding of science and psychology. This is about the three creation stories that resolve conflict in a syndromal way across 6 episodes, 6 emotions: stress, response, anxiety, defense, reversal or outcome, and compromise. And at the end, there is religion. So this is about the very problematic family of the Greek gods. And what you're seeing here is the process of creativity, the way it manifested with this kind of pattern of total family disaster for 5 generations. And at the end of this tremendous conflict, you have a resolution and have a beautiful religion of the Greek gods. And there is the end of this kind of conflict with Athena being celebrated as a virgin on top of the Parthenon. But this began with Mother Earth protecting her child from the angry father. This is the sky, the earth, and Kronos, the child, which means time. His action was to kill his father, to castrate him with the help of his mother, and out of his genitals, Aphrodite was born. But Father Uranus cursed Kronos to get it from his own children. So anxiety is the phase of anticipating being killed, and the defense is to eat his own children. So here is Kronos eating the Olympians, and his wife is giving him a stone, and he's holding Zeus. The outcome of that is that Zeus became the wine bearer. He gave an emetic potion to Kronos, and Poseidon, Hades, and Zeus killed Kronos, who cursed him to get it the same from his own children. And Zeus here swallowed his wife to avert being killed by his children, and out of his head came Athena, who eventually was afraid of having children, and she was raped, and out of the earth was born her child. So here is the summary of a pattern, and that is useful for analyzing the mental process as a dialectic of emotions. Now, what is of interest to me, as a Greek, I was aware of the fact of the Oedipal competitive dynamics in the culture, and I was very aware of the cooperative, respectful attitudes and values of Jewish culture, which are manifested in the Oedipal dynamics versus the father-son covenant. And so here is an example of the analysis of 4 different cultures based on how we deal with temptation. The Jewish paradigm is the apple is forbidden. And because of transgression, you lose in paradise. The Greek paradigm is the apple is for the fairest. So it is inciting trouble, competition. Oops, I'm sorry. So the alternative cultural paradigms in India and in the Aztecs are that the person hurts himself as an ascetic person, and the apple is the cow, versus in the Aztecs where the heart of the person is the apple of the gods. So these are the 3 four cultural alternatives in resolving conflict, which are symbolized by graphically representing that as sine curves and circles. So here we have the phenomena of science underlying the creative process. We have a pendulum oscillation, which creates these sequences as a six-roll process, beginning from a conflict, coming to a resolution. And we have equilibrium principles of the scale, which are formal operations of removing a weight, adding a weight, or moving the weight on the fulcrum. And I have this as an alternative way of presenting the art of the science. The one becoming the spiral staircase is the process, and the plow here represents the moral direction. This is a book about integrating paintings of an artist to show this dialectic, integrating his many different canvases meaningfully, and you can see the discovery of a religion at the end. So religion is a psychological phenomenon, and my role is playing Prometheus as stealing the fire of religion and to healing the world. I'm sorry. So this is a book about understanding the symbolic language of this artist by showing how the principles of passivity, activity, alienation to respect, antagonism to cooperation are the key principles driving the unconscious. So a new psychology redefines the unconscious, rethinks the diagnostic categories as the diagnosis of wellness, integrates projectives and inventories to create a self-assessment, and introduces morality as a science of discoveries. This is the alternative ways of resolving conflict, which are presenting the four characters of the Wizard of Oz, which are equivalent to the four characters of the Habada, the children who are asking what is special about this night. Now, this is a beautiful inn, which I bought after publishing the books, and I incorporate that art to science. And this is the family running it. And this is how beautiful it is as a place to try to figure out how to deal with wisdom. And here is one of the sanctuaries on the place, so it's I call it the Sanctuary of the Wizard of Wisdom. And I have an Easter Island head that has a tear. And it's the writers of all religions and all ideologies saying, how come the world is not happily ever after all my stories? And the scale next to it says, don't despair, the secrets to happiness are in all stories, provided you understand the conflict resolution plot of stories. And here is my story, utilizing that methodology. So here is my childhood as victim of metaphors. This is my identity in my mask as a Pinocchio, lying about myself to avoid the killer whale of metaphors. Here is the next phase of what is behind the mask. Geppetto and the Pinocchio is inside the killer whale, and Pinocchio says, I know how to stop being a puppet by understanding the strings that pull us. It's the metaphors. And here is my Oedipus, who resolves the conflict by saying to the Sphinx is matriarchy as a fight and flight woman who doesn't resolve conflict. And he says, I know the answer to your riddle, but I don't want to tell you because I don't want you to jump off the cliff. And I want us to be partners. There's my goat. And here is my dream come true with the inn that I bought as very brave with running it with the family as my dream of training people and educating the world about understanding how psychology is the science of morality. And here is my short story where you can see a fiddler on the roof of a Greek temple reconciling faith and reason and reconciling all the metaphors of the world as halos around it. And this is my Holocaust. I have murals within this sanctuary. You know, the idea of being able to understand emotionally and help people to resolve the conflicts. Thank you. And this is the end of the presentation of the case study. And this woman who came for an analysis of justifying her being a Holocaust survivor, and completed this assessment on her own, and she had a great relief. And at the very end, she says she started losing control of herself, experiencing profound emotional release. Thank you.
First of all, thank you. Thank you for speaking so honestly, and so much work and so much thought and so much passion, Albert.